Well, good afternoon, everybody. Today we're going to be doing a long-term review of the Tonor TC-2030 USB microphone kit. Now, I found this on Amazon for $71.99 right around a month ago, and I did an unboxing then. And today is going to be the long-term review and how I've been utilizing the microphone and also mainly the boom arm stand with a couple of different microphone setups. So what I'm going to do is take you through that process, the unboxing, what I like about everything, and how I've kind of changed a couple of things around. Now, you could also use this for various types of voiceover work, gaming, YouTube. You can use it for podcasting, but I mainly got this for was the boom arm over here, and the microphone was a bonus. I wanted to try out something different. So let me just kind of go over a couple things, do the unboxing, and I apologize for the different type of microphone today. Typically, I have the Zoom H-6 with the stereo mic on the boom arm, which is right in front of my face with a pop filter. But today we're going to be doing something a little bit different because I need to actually do this presentation. So let me just do the unboxing real quick, get that over with, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty here. Okay. So the shipping on this was, I believe, 3 or 4 days because due to the COVID and everything, stuff just wasn't shipping from Amazon. So you get the instruction manual here. This is basically what you get, which I'll be going over everything extensively. And here's the warranty card. Now, I've reached out to the company a couple of times, and they've been great. I mean, I reached out to them through email and also through Facebook, and they email you back right away within about 24 hours, considering they're in Asia with the time difference. So this is what you get in the box, and these are just simple straps. You can use these for literally anything, but I've seen a lot of straps including a lot of different products, and these are actually my favorites so far for a lot of reasons, and I'll get into that. They're Velcro on both sides. I also have the other Tonor microphone boom arm too, which I already did a cross review, kind of comparing and contrasting one to the other, which I will include in the link above and below. So this is just the wind cap that you get with it. I've really used this in general. That's just going to be speaking outside. This goes over that over there, which I'll be going over in a minute. Here's the actual stand part. This is for your desk. And I'll go over some of the pros and not really cons of this, but because every single one that I've had, probably over 15 or 20 years, they all kind of do the same thing, and I found a couple of ways to get over that. So for example, like over here, this gets condensed. So what I end up doing is putting some type of small plate over here, small plate over here, and it won't even mark up your desk. Even though this will not mark up your desk, I just do everything as a precaution, especially if you're going to be using this in your parents' house, for example. So here's the actual microphone. Now, for the $71 price point, this is actually a really good microphone. I like how it looks. It photographs well. So if you're going to be doing a lot of YouTubing or gaming, and this is going to be on video, it's going to look really good and present at the end of the day. They kind of got like that old school kind of feel and look from the 50s with this. I've done several audio tests, I think between 4 and 5, and everything sounds great. It either plugs into GarageBand or into Logic Pro, and I'll bring out the cord in a minute and I'll set everything up. So this is the actual part that you install. This is a 1/2 inch over here, which is really nice because they ask you which one you need. The 1/2 inch is typical. I ended up having to get an adapter from Amazon for a couple of dollars for what I wanted to do, but I'm going to go over this first in a second. So here's the actual boom arm over here. It's a little bit longer than the updated version, and again, I'm going to link that above so see. This is a very typical boom arm that you would see for any type of podcasting. I've seen these things several times over the years. Now, I also did look at the blue one too and a couple other ones on Amazon. And for the price point, for how much traveling I was doing, I thought this would be the best bang for my buck until I get a permanent studio per se. So let me just take this out over here. This is the pop filter that you get. And when I originally started this process, I didn't use the pop filter because I've used these in the past. And then I put it on because I was getting a lot of my P's just popping per se. And this avoided about 99.9% of all my popping. Occasionally I would pop in case I had the microphone accidentally hit through here, but it's never been a major issue. And then this is just a cord. So let me get rid of the box, and we're going to go over the process of setting everything up and how I was experimenting over the last several months. Okay, so just be careful when you take this out of the box, obviously. This actually comes with a little thing over it so it doesn't pop out, because this will pop out on you. It's going to extend that real quick, kind of go over this. So this is the part that goes in here, right over here. This goes onto your desk. Now, when you find a good platform for this, I highly recommend you doing some experimenting with how it's actually going to sit and where it's going to sit. This might take you a considerable amount of time to figure this process out, meaning how you're going to run your cords, how you're going to like it. I probably used 6 to 10 different setups before I found something that worked great for me. And it's all experimentation, because what you think is going to work in one realm is really not going to work in the other realm. Give me 1 second here, guys, so I can kind of move the microphone around a little bit. So what I'm shooting this on right now is actually a Zoom H-6 with a stereo mic, and typically that is right over here. So, okay, and then this is just a part that plugs into here. Hold on a second. Where did that thing go? Oh, here it is. Okay, that's that part. So typically when you put this onto a desk, when you put this onto a desk, just find a nice platform for it. So with the newer version, you actually get a bigger platform. But I actually like this version better for what I'm trying to do for my setup right now. So this just goes all the way down. And typically what I do with any type of clamping system when I get it for anything, especially for a boom arm, is I tend to put a little piece of plastic here or something that's really solid, just so you don't continually get this going on and this ends up flattening out. It probably won't ruin the surface. It's just the fact that if you're going to be on a desk and this is going to be constantly moving, if it's not that important to you, it's fine. It also gives you a little bit stronger of a base too, because you can adjust it over here and you can adjust it over here. So if you add something on the bottom, like a really thin piece of plastic, just something that has a bigger base to it, you just get a little bit less wiggle. I don't really get wiggle like this anyway, but it just depends on how heavy the microphone arm is and how much you're moving it around, because I tend not to move my microphones around too much. It's pretty much set, and then I just start shooting all day. So as far as this goes over here, this is a 1/2 inch over here, and then I ended up getting the adapter, which is right over here from Amazon, for about $3.95. This got sent overnight to me because I needed a 1/2 inch into 3/8. You could also get a 1/2 inch into a 1/4 inch. It just depends on your setup, and you'll see what I'm talking about in a minute. So I'm gonna put this on real quick and kind of get into how you would set up in theory your cords and everything if you decide to use this as your microphone. So this is pretty simple as a process. This is very basic. I've had several microphones over the years, and they're all pretty much designed the same as far as how you're going to be putting a microphone on. Most of the higher end microphones or anything like this with a actual condenser microphone has a 1/2 inch to it. So let me just get all this in all together. And I'm going to take this off and put my other microphone on there and show you exactly how I manage cables and everything too. So that's pretty simple. You plug this in like this, and then just make sure that's nice and tight. And this just gives you the ability not to make sounds. For example, when you're going back and forth, you won't get that thumping sound if you accidentally hit this, because these are the kind of like a it's just an absorption. It's an absorption of the actual part over here, so you don't get the vibration in there. This is the cord that you get. This is more than enough room. I'm not going to connect it right now, but this is more than enough room to have your laptop anywhere from 4 to 5 feet from you. And this could easily go into any laptop, and that goes straight into Logic Pro or into GarageBand. You could also obviously plug this into other things too. You just need the adapter. I have a USB-C on my MacBook Pro, but the sound is for the quality of what you're getting for the price point. It's absolutely phenomenal. I was actually really blown away because I've used a lot of high-end microphones, especially in college, and what we were paying. This was over 20 years ago. But to get this type of setup for this price, you really can't beat it. Only if you're going to be using the boom arm too, and you want to get this thing just to try it out. I highly recommend getting the 2030. They have a little bit lower end one. It's, I believe, the 50, right around a $52 price point, but I like this one better. That's the reason why I got that one. So that's pretty much it for that. These are the little things you get. This is just to strap your cords over here, which I'm going to be doing the full cords and everything with the microphone I'm going to be bringing out. So typically, I use the Zoom H-6 with this mic setup, and I use everything on here. I still use the pop filter, which is really nice. Hold on a second here. Just take this out. Now, depending on your setup, you might need to buy an adapter because this doesn't come with the adapter for the 1/2 inch to the 5/8, to the 3/8, or to the half inch to the 1/4. So, but they do ask you a question if you want to get a different type of adapter head, which is a nice option too. Let me just get this off. See, the actual setup of this can take a considerable amount of time. There's a lot of trial and error with what you're going to be trying to do and how you're going to be running wires and whatnot. So let me put this to the side and get out some of the adapters that I've been using. So for example, I've been using this. I've been using this adapter. Just you can buy at Amazon. This was included in one of the Aputure lights I'm working with right now. This is another adapter that you can use. This is a 3/8 into a 1/4. Here's a micro USB-C, which I'll be getting into in a second. And then, so what we're going to be doing is setting up this mic, which is this is a Rode video mic NTG that I picked up instead of my Rode Video Mic Pro Plus. So now I work with two mics, which is the Zoom H6, which is, let me just bring it in real quick so you can see it. This is the Zoom H6. So typically it's up. Hold on a second here. So typically it's up like this, and I'm speaking straight down into it. But for this presentation, it just needs to be off to the side. And I'm going to be using this as an example because I like the sound better out of that one. So what you can do is basically take any mic and put this onto the boom arm. Now you might need the adapter, you might not. It just depends on how your mic is set up. And I'm going to also do the cable management too. And I'm going to use this cable as my audio out, and this cable I'm going to be using as my as my data, because with the Rode Video Mic NTG, you could actually run data from here into the microphone, so that's nice too. So if you decide to go with this setup, with this boom arm, you can take this and run the data straight to your laptop instead of into your audio source. Instead of into your actual DSLR or mirrorless camera, whatever setup that you have. So basically, when I first got this, I was really excited for a couple reasons, but I've been wanting to do this podcast type setup for a while for all my videos. So typically, my microphone that is in the frame right now, if you can see it, is right over here. The boom arm is to the side. It's on a side table. And then my arm ends up being kind of hard to explain. So my arm ends up going through here, and I have no issues with giving the presentation or going over various types of products. I like both, but I like the sound better out of the microphone when it's right in front of me instead of right in front of me over here. I just get a little bit more of an echo, even though, so for example, where I'm shooting at right now is in a hotel room, and I get some soundage off the back wall because I'm speaking in front of a wall, and this picks up most of the sound. So, and hopefully the air conditioner doesn't go on. So let me just do this real quick here, because this thing's gonna spring open in a second. Let me just do that. So I'm shooting on a 24-105, and I've been meaning to get a bigger lens, just a wider lens, but this tends to work out pretty well. I'm shooting with the RF lens and a Canon EOS R in 4K, and I've been shooting everything in 4K, and it's been looking fantastic. So let's get this microphone hooked up. So what I do is a couple different things. It just depends on your setup. I'm gonna be using this as a setup. Some of the mics don't come with the 3/8, some just come with the 1/4. So where's the adapter at? So I picked this up from Amazon for, I think it was $4. They make a wide variety of these things. I highly recommend you get a couple of different of these just in general to throw into your bag, because you never know where you're going to need an adapter. And I was just lucky this came overnight. So it just screws in like this. Don't over tighten these, because they can be kind of a pain to get out when you over tighten. That's pretty much that. And then this goes in just like this. And again, you're going to have to play around with what works better for you as far as your microphone setup. Some people like the microphone right in front of their face. You know, if my face was right here and here's the pop filter, just like this. This is typically how I have it. Some people like the microphone right in front of their face. Some people kind of boom it from a higher perspective. Now, what's nice about this is you don't have to have this microphone in front of your face. You can have it boom down. You can have it boom to the side. You could also use it for a light, since I now have two of these, because I also have the updated version of the Tonor boom arm. That's the T20, which is actually a little bit shorter than this. Again, I did a full review, compare and contrast how I set everything up, so I'm not going to bring in that microphone stand right now. So this is a little bit smaller than my Zoom H-6, obviously. So the Zoom H-6, let me just bring it in real quick so you guys can see what I'm talking about. So here's the microphone itself. As I turn it away, you can hear how much it picks up the sound. So this is almost right in front of my face. It'll probably be blowing out a little bit because I have the gain up pretty much. But I just like how I can control everything over here. And if I want to review files, as far as, let's just say I'm doing a quick sound check, I don't have to sit there and go to the camera. I can just run the audio through there, which I'm doing right now as an external audio source straight in the DSLR. But if I want to do a quick sound check with this mic, all I have to do is replay the files on the Zoom H6, which is really nice. You can't do that with this option, obviously. Hold on one second here. Sorry about all the microphone back, guys. This is just, it's a little bit different of a review as far as what my setup is. So typically what I would do when I was experimenting with this is, now I have to put in the adapter for this. This is just a 1/4 to 3/8, which is really common. I think this was included in the Rode product. I'm pretty sure it was. Just put that in like that, and then this just goes in like this, just like that. Just depends on how you want to crank everything down. And what's nice about the Rode, if you decide to go that route, and this is their newest product, this is USB-C, which is great for charging. It only lasts 30 hours compared to the other one, but you got your gain over here, which is great. It's kind of got like that, it's not a tactile feel. You can't feel the actual tocks or the ticks, but it's just got a good feel to it. Okay, so let me get this the way I had it before. So, hold on a second. Okay, that makes sense. Sorry about that. It's just a little bit weird when you're doing this from this perspective and you want to kind of show everything. So yeah, so let's just do that. This will be a good example of how you can do this. So just make sure this is nice and tight. This is going to take a lot of experimenting, everybody, to figure out what's going to work for you and what's not as far as tightening everything up. This took me a good, I would say a good hour the first time, just kind of figuring everything out as far as what I was going to do and how I was going to do it, making sure everything's tight. Okay. And that'll be the boom arm over here. So let's run some cables real quick. I'm going to run 2 cables, which I typically do. One is the line in from the DSLR on a 20-foot monocord. Movo cord, I'm sorry. And then you can put this in over here. And then if you want to run your headphones over here, I'm going to bring in my Beats by Dre, which I typically don't use for this. My headphones are really long. They're like almost 10 feet just because I like a longer headphone. For this demonstration, we're just going to use this over here. And then the cord management is interesting for anything that you're putting together, because with cords, as everybody knows, it really depends on how you're running them, what colors they are, how thick they are. So I typically use 2 of these when I do this. And the one thing you have to be cognizant of is when you're bending this, I'm sorry, hold on a second here. So when you're bending this like this, you have to be cognizant that this is going to open up from here. So you kind of want to make this a little bit looser, and depending on how you end up routing the arm to where your table is, that's when you should put your cables on last, because the cables are going to kind of be all over the place. You're just really not sure how it's going to go. So hold on a second here. Let me just do this real quick so this thing doesn't move. Okay, perfect. So you're running the cables like this. Hold on. See, this can be a challenge with how you're going to be getting this, just because of everything that's going on. So there we go. Okay. So now we're going to run both cables side by side so you can understand how I do the cable management. Again, this is going to be different on every microphone. So for example, the Zoom H-6 is a little bit different for me because of where the cables are. And this is a microphone I typically use as my secondary microphone on another camera, just in case I don't like this audio source, or it goes out, and it's done that before, where a cable just happens to slip or it just happens not to turn on for some reason. So let me throw this one over here. Now what's nice about these is, depending on the side you want to use, it could be either bright, like over here. If you don't want that color, you just go to this color over here. And these are great. I mean, I've used these for various types of cords, for setup and for breakdown, and just holding things like this. Every microphone stand is different. It's kind of got its different attitude and uniqueness to it. So you kind of have to play with everything. So let me run that over there. And then we'll run a second one over here. Now again, I like having a microphone in front of my face versus off to the side, just because of the sound quality. So for example, if I have this Zoom H-6, which you can see in frame, my face is literally right there with the pop filter. So okay, you run that over there just like this. And again, it's going to take some time for you to figure out what works and what doesn't work. I typically only have to use 2 of these cables because I have a 10-foot cable running from the Canon EOS R. I'm also using a 190 Go right now, shooting straight down. So let's put the pop filter on. Let me just put a third one on just for in case people want to see that. You could also use other products too. It just depends on how you want to manage your cables. Typically, I run all black cables on purpose just so it doesn't take away from the presentation. Or if it's going to be on video, I just don't want to have different color cables. It can look interesting, but I like to get black for everything for the most part. So let's put the pop filter on so you can see what I'm talking about. Okay. So typically, let's just say this was off to the side, and you would run this just like this. This is how you would run this. Now, you have to play around with how you actually have the microphone in front of your face. I like having my microphone this literally between 2 and 3 inches from my face because you get that really good deep, just you get the crisp, you get everything from your voice if you have a really good mic. And once you go to a stereo mic and a video mic NTG, it's kind of hard to go back to anything else. I think I paid $250 for this and the Zoom H-6. Well, that's different because you're buying adapters. The adapter for that microphone was $150, and then the actual Zoom H-6 is, I believe, $399. You get 2 different adapters with there. But I like that setup better just because of the sheer fact of the sound I'm getting from the stereo shotgun mic. Now, you can get the higher end NTGs. However, you cannot run the power like this. They have to be external power. So that's just to give you guys an idea. So let's put on the pop filter. This is going to take some getting used to. If you've never used a pop filter before, if you have, I've used several. This one is great. I have no issues with it at all. I just like the fact that everything's black and it looks uniform. So depending on where you like your pop filter at, I tend to have them all the way back as far as where I kind of manage it at, just because I like to get the most out of the extension arm from that perspective. So just make sure this is nice and tight. You're going to have to play with this a little bit. It's not going to mark up this at all. You might get a couple of marks on there, but honestly, at the end of the day, it's not that really big of a deal. So let's see how this looks over here. Might have to go a little bit lower with it, yeah. So let me get this a little bit lower. Again, this is all going to take time. The first time I set this up took me, I would say, at least a half an hour. And by the time I got to the 3rd and 4th iteration or experimentation with it, I found what worked best for me and how the boom arm works. So I've tried both boom arms. It just depends on what you're trying to do. So that's typically how I would run it. So these cords over here, so see what I'm talking about, is if you completely close this down, these things start moving a little bit, which can work for you or against you, because I tend to run sometimes 2 different sets of headphones. So I have the Sennheiser Momentum 3s, which requires a different cord than the M50s I'm on right now. So that's typically how I would have it. So the boom arm would be, this part would be on the side of the desk, or I actually have a separate desk for that, just because how I like the cable management and how it's actually coming up. And then just like this. This you're going to have to play around with as far as, yeah, you're going to have to definitely play around with this over here with how you're going to be positioning it up or down. And once you get that set, this will probably never move on you. You might occasionally have to adjust it depending on how you're running your cables and how these are. So by the time you get everything set up over here, what's going to happen is you're going to start adjusting these subtly throughout maybe your first 5 to 10 presentations. So you're going to find out what works and what doesn't work. What works for me is not going to work for you and vice versa. people, you have to understand with any type of audio setup, it's all experimentation. There's stuff that I figured out, like when I was using the, so I'm using right now a Canon EOS R shooting straight down with a 24-105 RF lens, which is great. But that's on a 190 Go with X Pro heads, and I just have the ability to shoot down. Now, this setup with what I'm doing right now took me a while as far as like a mini studio. So for example, this is my main mic, which is actually the Zoom H-6 again, right over here. And then I have a Canon EOS R on the side, I'm sorry, a Canon 80D with a 10-18 just in case I need the wide angle. And that's with a SIRUI tripod, mini tripod. And then I have an iPad Pro in front of me that just goes over everything I'm going to be talking about. And then over here I'm running an iPhone SE. And the reason for that is so what I can see what's going on in the EOS R. And then also I have a MacBook Pro where I can either have the option of controlling the EOS R right away with a live view, or I can control the 80D from that perspective. So okay, why did it say the movie recording was stopped automatically? We're only at 9 minutes over here. Okay, I'm going to keep on shooting. I'll figure that out later. Hopefully I didn't go over on the time. Let me restart this Canon real quick over here. Okay, just in case. I might have to reshoot this. I'm not sure yet. So that's pretty much how I manage the cables over here and how this is going to look from this perspective. Now, the pop filter makes a big deal when you're talking straight into the microphone. So for example, depending on how big this is, because on the Zoom H-6, this is actually much taller. So you just kind of have to be cognizant of that. This mic works just as good as this mic. I like the sound quality better out of that mic. That's just how I like it. You kind of have to experiment with everything too. And I'm also running 3 different lights. So I'm running 2 Aputure lights and a BOLING P1, so I can kind of get like this studio effect. Now, like I said, for how much money I paid for this with the microphone, it was a nice addition to what I'm trying to do on a lower budget as far as buying stuff I don't really want to spend too much money on right now. I think when I get more of a permanent studio, I might spend a little bit more money on a different type of boom arm, but this thing has been working great so far. Once you get this kind of adjusted over here and this kind of adjusted over here, meaning the tension that you put over here, you might like the longer boom arm better. It just depends on what you want to do. Now, there's shorter boom arm, which again is the T20. That boom arm is about cut off like right over here. So if you're going to be doing a lot of traveling, I would recommend that one. If you have more of a permanent studio setup, you could actually run both of them. So you can run one for your main mic, and then you can maybe run one for like a GoPro or for a light, depending on how you want to run everything. So for example, typically I'm using, here's an example. So these are just RAM mounts, but I've got my iPhone on there so I can just do the touchscreen and see the live view of the Canon 80D. And then I'm also running the USB-C to the MacBook Pro. Again, this is so I can see everything. And I kind of want to go over everything, how I have it set up, to give you guys some ideas. This is really important. Once you get this process down of figuring out your cable management and figuring out the nuances of this product, meaning how the boom arm works, how the pop filter works, how to position everything, your audio is going to be absolutely phenomenal. I can deal with the video not having the best video quality, but a lot of times when you're on YouTube or you're giving some type of presentation, you're not looking at the video most of the time. You're just listening to the audio, and it happens a lot on YouTube. So if your audio is great and you have a great audio setup, you'll set yourself up for success. Spend the money on the audio, guys, whether it's this microphone, which sounds great for your entry level, or if you decide to spend a little bit more money. So like I said, the Zoom H-6, let me bring that back in real quick. This is 450, I'm sorry, 550, just for that. But out of all the microphones that I've used, and I've used several of the Rode products as far as the Video Mic, the Video Mic Pro, the Video Mic Pro Plus, and now getting this one, once you go to a higher type of audio source and also a more professional podcast setup, so I consider this more of a podcast setup, it's hard to go back and do something else, meaning it's hard to go back to a lower tier product. So let me kind of wrap this up real quick again with the Tonor. So you get this, obviously. Let me just go over the book real quick here. So the customer service is great. Like I said, I've had to contact them a few times, and there's no issues with that. So again, you get the microphone over here, you get the pop filter. Now their pop filter is exactly the same, I think, on 3 or 4 of their products. You get the longer boom arm stand. So this is the first generation. Now they have a second generation. You get the data cable. If you need to do an extension to this, it's pretty simple for the most part, because you'll probably be running this in the USB-C anyway. This is the phone windscreen. I tend not to use these. I like the pop filters better. I think it looks better. I think it sounds better. I think there's a sound difference from having a pop filter on to this. As far as my experimentation with the Rode Video Mic Pro and also with my Zoom H-6 with the stereo mic, if I have any type of filter on there like this, which is the phone windscreen, I do notice it's not as crisp. Now with the pop filter, there's absolutely no difference from the sound quality except your P's and your basically anything that's going to pop per se. You'll eliminate about 99.5% of everything. Occasionally, if this hits, if this hits this like this, you might get a little bit of feedback, but there's been several times where I've given reviews and this was on top of this. I didn't even hear the difference. So, but I also always run headphones when I'm doing presentations too, so you can hear the feedback right away. I think that's important. And again, these are just some examples of how you can run this over here. And then if you're on a Mac, it's pretty simple for the most part. This will be run, it'll run just like this. As you can see, MacBook Pro microphone, Tonor microphone, it'll recognize it right away. And you could either use GarageBand, you can use Logic Pro, or whatever editing program you're going to be running. That's if you decide to use their proprietary microphone. And if not, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be running your sound directly into your DSLR. So for example, I've got a 10-foot cord that runs into the back of the Zoom H-6, which is, as you can see over here. So that wire you see on the very end, that is the line in to the EOS R, and then the other cord is to my Audio-Technica M50 headphones, which I also did a review on. So like I said before, guys, I'm going to be including the review of the Tonor T20 against this one, just so you guys can see the difference. There's pluses and minuses to both. It really depends on what you're going to be doing. I think until you get both of them in front of you, you won't know which one is going to work out better for you. But they're both very reasonably priced. And that's pretty much it. So to wrap it all up, this is great. Every desk is going to be different, so you kind of have to play around with it. Like I said, all you have to do is make sure you put something over here. This is typically what happens to any of these clamps. It doesn't matter if it's Tonor, it doesn't matter if it's Blue or Rode. This tends to happen over a period of time. This just gets condensed, but this will not mark up your desk. Just make sure that when you're constantly moving it back and forth, that this has got a good base to it, because if you constantly move this and you put too much stress on it, it's just going to kind of shift a little bit. So for example, let me just bring it in. This is the one that you get with the updated boom arm. And like I said, I've done a full review of both of them together, side by side, but this is just a much different. So depending on the desk I'm going to be using, and depending on the boom arm, I might use this with the shorter boom arm or the longer boom arm to see what actually works for me, and then also run the secondary boom arm from that perspective. Let me see what my time is here. We're at 17 minutes. Okay, let me wrap this up. So like I said, I'll include a link to Amazon below. Right now it's going for, I think it's $71.99. I've seen the price fluctuate just a little bit on Amazon. Now, due to the COVID, it might take a couple of days to ship out, but once it did ship out, I'm in Arizona right now. It shipped from Texas. I got it within 2 days. So it's not been an issue. Again, everybody, this is the Tonor TC-2030 microphone. You can use this for a wide variety of things. It can be used for YouTube, for voiceover work, for podcasting, for gaming. It's got a 24-inch millimeter diaphragm. It's a cardioid condenser microphone. One thing I didn't go over. It just depends on what you want to do at the end of the day. Sorry for the long presentation. Hopefully you guys enjoyed something a little bit different. You guys have a good day. Be safe.